Sebastian, thank you for joining us today. This is
Thank you, Blake. Happy to be here inside the pod.
Inside the Pod, indeed. This was your idea to call it In the Loop. I think that was brilliant.
Good.
Absolutely brilliant. Um, you're been a big fan of the Hyperloop for some time. How who are you and what do you do and how did you get involved with the Hyperloop?
Well, my name is Sebastian Sjöberg, based in Sweden, co-founder of 10x Labs, which is an initiative for driving accelerated change at scale through exponential technologies. We work a lot with large companies such as Volvo and Ericsson and others to facilitate more bold, more innovative roadmaps. And we also, on the other side of the coin, co-create and work a lot with makers and startups to truly be users and explorers of the future and the technology that will build that future. And as such, the Hyperloop is a key cornerstone in our work, because that indeed will be a cornerstone of the post-fossil fuel era, we firmly believe. So for us, it's very obvious that we must be part of the loop. We must be in the loop. We must understand it. We must tell that story, which is why I'm here in a pod, so to speak, double
Traveling.
entendre,
Yeah.
to speak with you about it, Blake.
Thank you. Yeah. And you have a background in anthropology, so your user oriented, outlook on life is kind of a one that I really like because you're doing a lot of documentation of the different teams and stuff right now, and I think getting these initial interviews. About who is contributing to the Hyperloop will be very interesting in the years to come as the Hyperloop becomes more and more important. Yeah, and currently, where would you want to go if we were in this Hyperloop pod? What two cities would you like to connect?
Well, Blake, we have thought about that for some time. We started exploring the Hyperloop on a conceptual level this summer when the design competition was announced, and we started telling that narrative from a European
Mm.
perspective. So we have a future forecast of the Hyperloop called EuroLoop, available at euroloop.io, where we speculate essentially about what would be the kind of metro map of Europe if we had the Hyperloop technology deployed, because that would be the kind of effect, the comparable effect we believe. And on that map, we tried to look, of course, at people transit, but also take into account the fact that what will subsidize this system for people will be industrial transportation of heavy goods.
Hmm.
We work a lot with Volvo construction equipment, and whilst they are not, of course, officially endorsing this vision yet,
Mm.
we are curious about how to shift massive amounts of iron ore, not through
Whoa.
rail, but through the pod.
Whoa.
So, to answer your question, the most interesting, not necessarily from a traveler's point of view, but from an infrastructural, industrial point of view,
Mm.
would be the distance between Narvik, in northern Sweden,
Mm.
close to Norway, where the big mines are, rather where the deep sea port is today,
Mm. Mm.
for all the ore, down to wherever in Germany they refine it and make it
Oh,
into steel. So
interesting.
from the very north of Europe down to the industrial heart of it. That's where I would like to go. Perhaps not personally, but I would like to see that happen because of what it could do to industry. Because if industry gets on board, we get the Hyperloop 10 times faster.
That's and honestly, I did hear about another company. I forget Hyperloop transportation technology, or I forget which one. That shipping cargo in this, but that never really dawned on me before. I always thought this was a people person thing.
It
That's
will
true.
be, but
Yeah,
it will only be affordable
it
if we
will be
ship
affordable.
massive amounts of goods.
Ah, well, that's really interesting. So, what made you choose the Hyperloop on today's journey? Why not just fly or take a car or? another train system.
Well, imagining here where I'm sitting in a kind of velvety Hyperloop design, traveling with massive amounts of iron ore from Narvik or Kiruna mine down to Germany. What intrigues me about this journey and why this journey deserves to be done in a pod is what can you do with the Hyperloop that is 10 times more efficient than using other means of transportation?
Mm.
That's the challenges that will beg for an answer and Hyperloop answer. Now, in Europe, the infrastructure is very good. You can fly almost anywhere. Distances aren't far. The roads are great, and even the rail is. It certainly serves all the needs.
Yeah.
Now, in emerging markets, that's where we have the truly open possibilities. But if I am to linger within Europe, I must look at, okay, where can we 10x this system? What can be made truly amazingly better, and then you have to look at either intercity travel, where there's a lot of congestion, commuters, where I don't think the Hyperloop concept is the perfect one,
No.
or you have to look at industrial transport of really premium items, which is either very small, expensive stuff, or very heavy abundance of
Wow.
expensive things like, or ergo, the best place in Europe to build Hyperloop is to transport heavy-duty goods,
Wow.
in my view.
Interesting. Yeah, it's much more of a, once you build it for industry, perhaps it's easier to build it for pedestrian use. I guess that was the case for, extension of railroad systems in the U.S. At least they would always build the railroad so they could get the heavy lumber back to the East Coast or whatever.
Yeah, the same economies of scale will drive this technology, and I think currently the builders of the Hyperloops, the maker community, is rightly focused on the core engineering. But when we think about the loop, we always think of it in terms of people transport, and we should, but we should not forget the economic opportunity that this will yield, because if we can show that to the big companies, they will be the ones investing through their funds and through their investment companies into the loop startups that will be launched this year and the next, I'm sure. So to get their money, we must show them the industrial application of the loop.
Wow, interesting. So how will the Hyperloop change your routine in the future? if would you would it democratize inequalities, or where you have more stuff available to you, more seasonal fruit from Africa would just take the Hyperloop up north, or I don't know what? How would it change your routines at all in your life, do you think?
It's a lovely thing to speculate on.
Yeah.
The Hyperloop deployed at scale represents such a massively disruptive force that we cannot comprehend. It's like trying to imagine the apps we have today, like Uber and Airbnb and so many others, back in 2007 when Steve Jobs said, "Oh, and one more thing," right? It goes. There are so many exponential steps that we cannot really predict, but I'm going to try anyway. I think what will happen is that we will turn very large areas, like the whole east coast of the US or most of Europe, into one effective megacity. You can choose to live where you want and work someplace else, so that quality of life and essentially the availability of choices and combination of choices will multiply. And that, I think, is a future very worth welcoming, because that means we can put people in nice places where quality of life is good and affordable, but they can work and do whatever they need to do where that is needed. We no longer have to compromise as much. That, I think, is the future. And then you have to also take into account other exponential technologies like virtual reality that will converge on this and perhaps make the need to actually work in one place less important whatsoever. It will afford us choices in how we live and how we work at a scale that cannot be easily compared to anything we've ever experienced.
Wow. Yeah, I can envision kind of the growth of quite long mega cities, cities that kind of morph into each other. Um, that might be accelerated perhaps with a Hyperloop station along kind of those city chains. Interesting. Well, Sebastian, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for naming this in the loop. That's brilliant. And I hope you have a good travel for the rest of the day.
Oh, me and my iron ore will reach the refinery in all but a moment, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Blake, and thank you for providing this context. It's content. It's lovely to be in the loop.